Welcome to 18th Century Cooking. I'm your host, John Townsend, and today we're talking about the sailor's favorite drink, grog. Thanks for coming along with us as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century. The major component, the important part of grog is rum, and rum was so very important to North America in the 18th century. It's a very vital, important item that's being traded with the West Indies all up and down the east coast of North America at the time. And it's not just important as a trade item, but it's important as part of the rations and provisions of sailors, of regular soldiers, and regular workers alike. So it's something that everyone in North America is experiencing, using, and making money off of, trading it back and forth. It's so very important to the war effort that in early 1776, Admiral Graves is sending out ships to go down to the West Indies to pick up rum because they're out of rum. It's vitally important to the fleet at that time. So he sends out a special ship to go. He actually has them tear out parts of the ship and get more kegs so they can fill the ship up with rum and bring it back because they are desperately in need of rum for their sailors, for their navy. It's the only way that people are going to work. Shipbuilding was going on during the Revolutionary War, and the shipbuilders were paid not only in just regular money, but in rum during the day. Each and every builder got his share of rum, just like he was a sailor or a soldier. So we find that they need to have this rum for everyone to be happy with their work. And there are multiple references to that idea of, it's their one solace in life. It's the only reason they have to keep going. Colonel Ethan Allen in captivity, at one point, he said the conditions were terrible, but they still had their provisions, their salt provisions, their salt beef, their salt pork, and they had their rum. And he thought that the rum was one of the only reasons why so many people survived in that particular situation. So they not only thought about it as something that was a solace in life, but as something that was medicinal. Rum was part of what was keeping them healthy. At least that's what he thought. The other main component of grog is water. And water in the 18th century was a tricky thing, wasn't it? You never were quite sure about whether your water was, safe, whether it was good. It was on board ship. You had to go and collect all this water. You put it in kegs. You stored it in the hold of your ship. And it wasn't very long at all, 2 or 3 weeks, a month later, and the water that you put in your kegs is going bad. It's getting green. It's doing all kinds of, microbes are growing in it. So the water goes bad very rapidly on board ship. And even if you are not on board ship, surface water can be a questionable item. So we find out that grog, making your water and your rum into grog, is very helpful because it sort of sterilizes your water. And in every reference to a ship's log, you'll find the ships, as soon as they come into any kind of a port, probably the very first thing they're thinking about if they have to leave soon is getting fresh wood and getting fresh water. You have to have water for your men, and your water is constantly going bad. So where does grog come from? Well, in the 17th century, the British Navy started to use rum in lieu of beer. If you were in home waters, the sailors would have a beer ration each and every day, but they also had these substitutes. If you weren't in home waters, you would have other items available, and rum started to become an obvious and consistent substitute. But the problem was that the sailors would hold back their rum ration for 2 or 3 days straight, maybe longer, and then they would drink it all at once and they would become intoxicated, and that was very dangerous on board ship. You had work to do, very dangerous work, hard work to do, and a fuddled mind was not helpful at all. So Admiral Vernon in the 1740s, he decided he would come up with a way that would make that harder for them to do and maybe make that rum a little less intoxicating. And he made sure to have their rum mixed with water in a 4-to-1 ratio. Made it harder to store back, for any period of time, and hopefully he thought it would make them less intoxicated if they drank it in its diluted form. Now, this term, it turns into this term of grog, and it turns into not just a naval drink, but a drink that other people would drink also. You'll find multiple references to this idea of grog from about 1750 on. And Admiral Vernon's nickname was Old Grog because of items he would wear, grogram cloth. And so that's where this grog term comes from, at least most people think. And grog keeps living on. It stays a part of the ration of sailors in the British Navy up until the 1970s, and it's part of the rations in the American Navy until about the Civil War or so. So not only is it right there happening in the Revolutionary War, but it stays on for 100 years later. So to mix these properly together, you really need a Jill cup. So the standard ration for almost every reference that you see is half a pint per man per day, and this was usually divided into 2 pieces. So we need a quarter of a pint or a half a cup. That's where the Jill cup comes into. That is half a cup. That's a half a cup measurement. And we created this this mixture here, probably a little stiffer than the standard ration here. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of lime to mine. And now we have our cup of grog, our standard. And you can imagine you'd have this twice a day, this full cup full. And it's actually quite a tasty little drink. It's so simple. It's just water and rum, and then just that hair of citrus in there. It's medicinal, obviously, with all that wonderful citrus in there. And it's a very, very palatable way to drink this. And you'll find just any number of references in the 18th century to not only sailors, but regular landsmen alike drinking a grog drink. Now, many times you'll see people using a drink like this as a way of convincing people, oh, come in and have a cup of grog with me. And then, of course, you'll find those in the court records. Something bad happened usually right after that. But grog was, so pervasive in the 18th century. Every man of war, every merchant ship, this was something that was commonly happening with all the hands on board. It is, the way that men are, it's one of the ways that they were kept happy at a job that was impossibly difficult and deadly at times, quite often. For more on naval rations, check this video out.